What if I told you that you're not lazy? What if I said that every time you've labeled yourself as unmotivated, unproductive, or inconsistent, it was a misunderstanding, that the battle you've been fighting isn't because something's broken inside you, but because something powerful in you hasn't been switched on yet? I've studied men who changed the course of history, men who built empires from nothing. These men didn't start with discipline, they built it. Men like Andrew Carnegie, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Charles Schwab. They didn't rely on feelings, they didn't wait to be motivated, they didn't even start as the men we remember today. What set them apart wasn't talent, IQ, or luck. They changed one thing, their identity. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now, right here for you. This isn't just a motivational speech. This is a system reset. Because if you've ever felt your ambition is too big for your current habits, if you've ever looked in the mirror and thought, I'm meant for more, but I just can't get moving, this message is for you. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to help you rewire your operating system so laziness feels foreign, movement becomes automatic, and discipline is your default mode. The first step? Belief. Belief that your current habits are not permanent, but programmable. Your subconscious mind, the part that controls 95% of your decisions, doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you repeat, what you believe, and the story you tell yourself every day. Until that story changes, your life will feel like a contradiction. Big dreams, small actions. Loud ambition, quiet execution. But today we end that contradiction. Today we begin alignment. And today you stop calling yourself lazy and start speaking like a man who knows the truth. I was never lazy. I was misaligned. So stay with me, from start to finish. Not halfway, not in the background. Fully. Because laziness is not fixed by motivation. You replace it with ritual, identity, fire. And that's what we build right now. Let's begin. Let's be clear. Laziness isn't a character flaw. It's a pattern, a signal, a message from your mind and body telling you that your current operating system is misaligned, underpowered, or disconnected emotionally from your mission. And here's the dangerous part. Most men don't realize this. They don't question the pattern. They accept it. They believe the lie. I'm just lazy. But I'm here to tell you, laziness is not your nature. It's a misfiring in your internal program, a temporary detour. And if you can override it, if you can rewire the system, trained by years of hesitation, distraction, and limiting beliefs, you can become a force. A man who doesn't wait for the mood to move, but moves no matter the mood. Look at the most ambitious men I've studied. Carnegie, Ford, Edison. None were born disciplined. Carnegie started as a bobbin boy in a cotton mill, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, for 120 a week. He wasn't passionate about bobbins, but he was ambitious. Even exhausted, poor, and unknown, he moved because he knew movement creates opportunity, and repetition creates identity. Henry Ford was a farmer's son, not born a builder or industrialist, but he saw a vision, the future of machinery and travel, and attached himself to it. He connected ambition to execution. He didn't wait for inspiration. He built discipline like a machine. He said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Meaning belief creates movement, not the other way around. Laziness isn't the absence of effort. It's the absence of clear belief, alignment, and a strong emotional why. When your subconscious doesn't believe your goal matters enough, it shuts you down. Not because it hates you, but because it doesn't trust you. That's why you don't fight laziness. You remove the story that created it. The problem for many ambitious men who call themselves lazy is this. They have a clear vision of who they want to be, but no system to get there. They dream of success, but live in reaction. They talk about freedom, but live by default. They admire discipline in others, but never installed it in themselves. Here's the deeper truth. No one will install it for you. No app, no book, no routine. Discipline isn't found in tools. It's forged in decision, repetition, and rejecting the lazy story to write a new one. Your subconscious listens for certainty and command. If you say, I'm not consistent, it accepts that. If you say, I always quit after a week, it agrees. If you say, I'm lazy but want to change, it hears lazy and programs accordingly. But what if you change the script? What if you say, I am the kind of man who executes no matter how he feels? What if you say, I do the hard thing daily because my mission demands it? What if you say, I no longer ask my mood for permission, I act because I said I would? Your subconscious would respond, because repetition with emotion is law. This isn't wishful thinking, it's psychology. It's the science of autosuggestion, which I wrote about in Think and Grow Rich, and witnessed in every great man I studied. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb by feeling motivated. He failed 10,000 times, but every failure was met with belief, action, and identity repeated. He believed so deeply that he was the man to bring light to the world that his subconscious refused to quit. His body followed what his mind decided. You must do the same, not with 10 steps, not with another plan, with one decision. I will no longer call myself lazy. Say it now out loud. I am not lazy. I am untrained and I train daily. I am not inconsistent. I am becoming the man who follows through. I am not a quitter. I build power through repetition. Say it until the voice in your head changes tone. Laziness isn't a fixed identity. It's your current programming, and programming can be rewritten. Here's a practical example. Charles Schwab, the steel magnate who rose under Carnegie, said the most powerful tool a man has is the ability to decide and act repeatedly without apology. He wasn't the smartest, but he moved while others hesitated. Schwab trained himself to take initiative before fear, delay, or fatigue could stop him. That habit made him indispensable. He didn't need to be the best, just the most willing to move. So I ask you now, what if your laziness isn't weakness, but a signal? What if it's telling you, I need a new identity, a new emotional why, a new repetition system? Because the man who repeats power becomes power. You must rewrite what you say to yourself daily. Stop labeling yourself the old way and start acting like the upgraded man. Here's how to start. Every morning, speak your new identity aloud, even if it feels fake. Every time you hear lazy in your mind, interrupt it with fire. That's no longer who I am. Every night, reflect not on whether you felt like it, but on whether you acted anyway, because that's the builder's measure. The man who acts without asking his feelings for permission, but because his identity demands it. That's how you rewire laziness. Kill the old story, feed the new one, and repeat until discipline is automatic. Now let's go deeper and build the next layer of your execution identity. Every man who accomplished extraordinary things didn't rely on feelings. They relied on structure, a system that didn't ask, how do I feel, but what must be done. This is the core misunderstanding of ambition wrapped in laziness. Thinking great effort needs great motivation, a surge of energy or inspiration to begin. Discipline is not emotional. Discipline is ritual. When ritual is installed, movement is inevitable. Look again at Henry Ford. He revolutionized movement, but not through emotion, through structure. The assembly line wasn't built because Ford had a good day. It was built because he refused to wait for one. The machines didn't care how workers felt. The system ran anyway. Ford treated himself the same. His mind was a machine, a structure repeated and enforced until success was no longer a question but a byproduct. This is the mindset you must install. Don't say, I want to be more disciplined. Say, I will create a system that makes discipline automatic, because waiting to feel ready is how men stay broke, stuck, buried in excuses. Let me tell you about Edison again. Do you think he felt like testing hundreds of filaments for the light bulb? Thousands of experiments, thousands of failures. He didn't do it because he was motivated. He did it because he had a process, laboratory assistance, a daily flow. He wrote it down. He measured. He didn't rely on emotion, but on structure. That's how genius is built. Not by inspiration, but iteration. Let me break it down more. Discipline, energy, clarity, structure. Energy comes from your health, so stop pretending your sleep, food, or focus don't matter. Clarity comes from purpose, so stop setting goals you don't emotionally believe in. Structure is the trigger system that makes movement automatic. Want to stop being lazy? Stop waiting for clarity. At 10 a.m. after an hour of scrolling, wake up and trigger your system before the world gets loud. A simple system, 3 steps. Wake up, don't check your phone. Speak your identity aloud, 1 sentence. I am a man who executes before emotion speaks. Do one hard thing immediately, not for the outcome, but as proof. Because every action is not just doing, it's reprogramming. You move before you feel like it. You starve the old self. Each time you speak belief aloud, you bury the doubter. Each time you show up without applause, you install an unshakable identity. That's how discipline is built, not in bursts, but in patterns. Another example, Charles M. Schwab, Carnegie's right-hand man. Not the smartest, but with presence built on repetition. He walked factory floors daily, checking details, praising effort, enforcing standards. Why? Because his system was consistency. Consistency created power. That's what you must do now. Stop calling yourself lazy. Start calling yourself in training. Stop waiting to feel like it. Start executing because your mission demands it. Install this belief, my discipline is not a mood, it's my operating system. Say it again until it becomes automatic, because the man who acts without asking feelings for permission becomes a giant. Now a warning most men never hear. If you don't create a structure, your environment will create one for you. It will be a structure of drift, default, scrolling your phone 35 times before noon, reacting to distractions, and calling it urgency. That's the system most men live in, and that's why most men stay average. But you're no longer average. You're rebuilding your pattern and installing execution. And here's the installation rule. Do it daily. Do it first. Do it anyway. First nut, before the world votes. Anyway, regardless of how you feel, daily, until the pattern owns you. Do this for 1 week. Your mind begins to shift. 1 month, your identity rebuilds. 90 days, the man who called himself lazy no longer exists.
He's replaced by the builder, the man of structure, decision. That's who you're becoming. All it takes is one move without feeling. Now let's go deeper. How to rewire your reward system and make execution feel better than delay. You are not lazy. You are well trained. You've trained your brain over years through repetition to feel good when you avoid the hard thing. Delay, scroll, and postpone your mission for short-term pleasure. And what is repeated with emotion becomes installed. So now, let's rewire what your brain calls reward, because here's the truth. You don't need more willpower.
You need better wiring. Most men reward themselves for avoiding discomfort. You hit snooze, your body relaxes. You skip the workout. Your mind feels relief. You don't make the call, and fear temporarily fades. That feels like a reward, and your subconscious records it as success. But that success is false. It comes at a cost. You gain comfort, but lose conviction. You feel safe, but lose power. You protect your emotions, but sabotage your identity. And identity, my friend, is everything. The question isn't how to become motivated. The question is, how do you change what you celebrate? Let me share a story. Andrew Carnegie, the steel titan who mentored me, understood this principle long before neuroscience ever proved it. When I asked him how he managed so many men, inspiring loyalty and productivity on a scale few could imagine, he said this: men don't move for money alone. They move because of who they believe they are becoming under your leadership. Carnegie made his men feel like builders, contributors to something greater. He celebrated effort. He praised boldness. He installed the reward of identity, not just outcome. That's what you must do for yourself now. Stop celebrating comfort. Start rewarding courage. Stop celebrating ease. Start rewarding initiation. Every time you start before you're ready, that is your new dopamine. Every time you move without motivation, that's your new applause. But don't just wait to feel proud. Create a ritual to reinforce the reward after you complete the hard thing. Say it out loud. That's who I am. After you say no to delay, write it down. Today I starve the old self. After you face resistance, breathe deep and smile. This is the fire that forges my future. Think this is small. That's because you haven't yet realized how much your subconscious craves reinforcement. Every act must be followed by identity, because your brain builds from patterns. Let me give you another example. Thomas Edison failed publicly, repeatedly, relentlessly on his way to invent the light bulb. But after every failure, he didn't say, "I'm not good enough." He said, "I found another way that won't work." See the difference? He reframed failure as forward motion. And because he rewired the meaning, he never burned out. He trained his mind to seek the process, not just the result. That's what we're doing now. You're not working harder. You're rewiring faster. You're linking pain to laziness and pleasure to movement. Let me show you a simple rewiring technique. Every time you do the thing you'd usually avoid, working out, making the call, opening your laptop to build instead of scroll, pause for 10 seconds after you finish, put your hand on your chest, say one sentence: "This is my new pattern." Why? Because your subconscious listens most closely right after action, in that small window, right after execution. Your identity is pliable. Speak power into it. Do this again and again until your nervous system associates action with identity. Now let me take you to Charles M. Schwab, who became president of U.S. Steel at just 35, managing thousands of men and billions of dollars. Do you think he got there because he had more talent or smarts? No, he trained himself to crave leadership. He loved responsibility. He linked reward to initiative. It wasn't easy, but he made it emotional. When things got tough, he leaned in, and afterward he'd remind himself, "I was born to lead." That sentence reinforced him. Every act of boldness built a new identity. Now it's your turn. No more "I'm lazy." From this moment on, your rituals say, "I do the hard thing. I move first. I choose progress over pleasure." Say it after the workout. Say it after the call. Say it when you open your notebook and do the work. You're not waiting for greatness. You're installing it. And remember this: every time you delay, you feed the old self. Every time you act, you feed the new one. Choose wisely. Now let's go deeper into the next transformation: how to kill the excuse loop forever and replace it with movement. Let's get honest. You already know what you need to do. You've known for weeks, months, some of you years. The strategy isn't the problem. The method isn't the barrier. The plan has whispered itself into your intuition 100 times. But instead of moving, you go back to thinking, back to overanalyzing, back to researching, back to waiting for the right time. This is not intelligence. It's habitual delay disguised as logic. Let me say this plainly. If your default is thinking instead of moving, you've trained your mind to obey fear, not purpose. The greatest enemy of greatness isn't laziness. It's the illusion of preparation. And the longer you prepare, the heavier doubt becomes. Want to know how Henry Ford built an empire that revolutionized transportation? He wasn't the most educated man. He wasn't the most gifted speaker, but he had a bias for movement. When his engineers told him the V8 engine block was impossible to build in one casting, he didn't argue. He said, build it anyway. When they returned saying it still couldn't be done, he didn't form a new committee. He didn't run a study. He didn't write a white paper. He simply repeated, build it anyway. Because Ford understood something modern men have forgotten. Excuses multiply in stillness. Excuses cannot survive motion. The moment you move, even with uncertainty, you kill the excuse loop. Because the mind, when idle, plays tricks. It magnifies fear. It inflates the cost of failure. It makes perfection sound noble, but it's just a sophisticated delay. Let me take you to another giant, Abraham Lincoln. During the Civil War, the pressure on Lincoln was unimaginable. Every decision meant lives. The nation was divided. Advisors conflicted. Public opinion wavered daily. And still, Lincoln moved. He signed the Emancipation Proclamation, not because conditions were perfect, but because the mission demanded motion. He once said, the best way to predict your future is to create it. Creation is never birthed from thinking alone. It's born through doing. The unstoppable man isn't the one who knows the most. He's the one who moves with what he knows, expanding while in motion. Here's what you must burn into your behavior. Don't ask, is this perfect? Ask, is this aligned? If it is aligned, move. Adjust later. Fix in flight. Because the man who waits for the ideal condition will die in theory. Let me share a discipline that has saved me and every ambitious man I've trained. The 2-minute rule of motion. If a thought enters your mind, something you know needs to be done, you have 2 minutes to take the first step. Not to plan it, not to write about it, but to do it. If it's a message, send it. If it's a call, make it. If it's a rep, start it. If it's an idea, record it. The only rule, move within 2 minutes of the thought arriving. Why? Because hesitation is how the excuse loop is born. Action is how it's broken. Now you may say, what if I fail? Let me give you the truth. You will. At times you'll make imperfect moves. You'll trip. You'll miscalculate. But the man who fails in motion is always closer to power than the man who fears in silence. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times on his way to the light bulb, but he didn't delay. He documented. He adjusted. He moved again. He said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That is the mindset of a builder, not a thinker. But you must decide now, what man do you want to become? The one who imagines power, or the one who moves in power, even before he's ready? Let me speak this into your soul. You don't need more time. You need fewer excuses. You don't need more confidence. You need motion, and motion repeated becomes identity. Here's your ritual. Every morning, write down the 3 actions that matter most today. Not the easy ones, the ones you keep postponing, the ones that scare you, then commit. Not to finish them perfectly, but to start each within 2 minutes of when you planned. Repeat this day after day, and something happens. The mind stops negotiating. It starts following you. Become the man who does, not the man who thinks about doing. This is your new language. I act quickly. I trust motion more than mood. I break excuses with movement, and the more you repeat it, the less room doubt has to speak. Remember this law. Hesitation trains the mind to disobey action. Disobedience trains the mind to submit. Say it again. I act, I move, I kill the excuse. There comes a moment in every man's life when he must stop negotiating with who he used to be. Not gently, not politely, but with fire. Because if you always leave a path back to your old self, your old excuses, your old rhythms, your old comfort, transformation will always remain optional, and anything optional will eventually be abandoned. The men I studied, the titans who rewrote the rules of their lives and industries, they didn't just step into the future. They cut ties with the past, not because the past was evil, but because it was no longer useful. And by doing so, they made change inevitable. Let me tell you about Hernán Cortés, the Spanish explorer, a man whose actions illustrate this law. When Cortés landed in Mexico with his small army, he knew they were vastly outnumbered by the Aztec Empire, but he also knew the psychology of hesitation. So what did he do? He ordered the ships burned. He removed the option of retreat. There was no going back, only forward, only conquest, only victory or death. That is the mindset you must adopt. Because if you leave the door cracked open to the man you used to be, he will whisper you back. You'll return to your snooze button. You'll crawl back to comfort. You'll make just this once excuses until they become your identity again. But when you burn the bridge, when you declare with action, I'm never going back to that version of me, your only path is forward. That's what Andrew Carnegie understood before he became one of America's wealthiest men. He worked as a messenger boy, earning a few dollars a week. But even then, in poverty, he invested his time reading, studying, and planning for the future. He refused to accept that the class he was born into would be the class he died in. He began writing his chief aim, not once, every morning and every evening until his subconscious could no longer tolerate mediocrity. He began to outgrow poverty mentally, emotionally, spiritually, long before his bank account did. And when opportunities came, he didn't hesitate. He moved. He invested time building partnerships, creating value, aligning himself with people of power. But most importantly, he stopped spending time with those who kept him tied to the past. That is burning the bridge. Now ask yourself, what in your life still connects you to the man you're trying to leave behind? Is it the conversations with people who don't believe in growth? Is it the habits, scrolling, sleeping in, starting and stopping? Is it the identity you cling to? I'm just not motivated. I've always struggled with discipline. I'm too inconsistent. If so, burn it. Not in anger, but in decision. Declare to yourself, that part of me no longer has a vote. Henry Ford once said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. That's not just a clever phrase, it's a law. And the only way to escape that law is to remove the option to do what you've always done. Here's how I call it. The bridge-burning ritual. Write down 3 things you will no longer allow in your life, not just ideas or behaviors. For example, I no longer hit the snooze button. I no longer eat after 9 p.m. I no longer explain my dreams to people who laugh. Write them down in bold ink. Speak them aloud every morning. Then destroy the reminders of the old self. Delete apps that keep you looping. Cancel subscriptions distracting your purpose. Block websites seducing your time. Stop answering messages from people who live in the past. You've outgrown that. This isn't about hate, it's about clarity. This is how Thomas Edison moved. He didn't wait for inspiration to strike. He built routines so powerful. His environment forced genius. His labs were filled with tools, notes, failures, and systems, not distractions. He had no use for the comforts that sedated other men. He designed a world moving only forward, and it worked. Now you must do the same. Ask yourself, what in my life makes the past easy to return to, and remove it today, not later, because every day you tolerate it is a vote for the man you no longer want to be. Say it aloud. Now I burn the bridge to my old life. I move forward. Only my identity is sealed by decision. Repeat it, then act on it. Let this be your fire, because once you remove the option to retreat, the only direction left is greatness. Now let's continue. A man who depends on motivation is a man gambling with his future, because motivation is a mood. Motivation comes and goes. It reacts to the weather, how well you slept, or what someone said online. But the man who builds his life on rituals doesn't wait for the right feeling. He creates the right environment. Greatness isn't spontaneous. It isn't the result of occasional bursts of intensity. It's the byproduct of repeated precision, a system, a rhythm, a machine that keeps running even when the soul is tired, even when the mind protests, even when no one is watching. That machine is ritual. I taught this in every chapter of Think and Grow Rich, and in the Law of Success, all powerful men share one thing in common: daily disciplines that don't depend on emotion. My own ritual includes daily auto-suggestion, writing out my definite major purpose, and spending intentional time in reflection and visualization. These aren't grand gestures. They are non-negotiables. Take Thomas Edison, for example. Edison didn't wait to feel inspired to experiment. He showed up and repeated his process. He didn't see failure as a dead end. He saw it as part of the equation. His ritual was relentless repetition. Each failed attempt was another layer of learning. Because he stuck to the rhythm, he built 1,000 inventions, not through genius, but through consistency. Ask yourself now, do you have a system, or do you wake each day hoping inspiration will find you? If your days are built on randomness, your results will be too. But if your days are built on ritual, your identity begins to transform automatically. Let's talk about Henry Ford. Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry by dreaming bigger. He did it by designing a repeatable system, the assembly line. He saw that if he could break the process into small automatic steps, repeated daily with little variation, he could scale excellence. Apply this to yourself. Your habits are your personal assembly line. Morning rituals, evening routines, structured hours. It's not about perfection. It's about creating an environment where progress becomes inevitable. Here's the key. Your rituals must reflect your identity, not just your goals. Want to become disciplined? Then act like a disciplined man. Not occasionally, but every day. Want to become focused? Then eliminate decisions that drain your energy. Wear the same clothes. Eat the same meals. Plan your day the night before. Automate what doesn't matter so you can focus on what does. Charles M. Schwab, steel magnate and protege of Andrew Carnegie, carried a small notebook everywhere.
In it, he wrote down the 6 most important tasks for the next day, ranked by priority. He learned this from his productivity advisor, Ivy Lee, who promised that if Schwab followed this system, his whole company would become more productive, and it worked. Why? Because Schwab stopped relying on motivation. He outsourced his memory to ritual. The notebook made decision-making automatic. No mental chaos. No debate. Just action. You can do the same. Let's build your machine. Here's the framework. 1. Morning ritual. Command the day before it commands you. Wake up and say your definite purpose aloud. Read or listen for 5 to 10 minutes to something that reinforces your identity. Move your body, not necessarily intense, just enough to build momentum. Visualize your most important win of the day and emotionally commit to finishing it. 2. Focus blocks. Create sacred time. Set a 90-minute timer with no distractions. 1 task only. Take a short break. Breathe, hydrate, reset. Repeat this rhythm up to 3 times a day. That's 4.5 hours of high-quality, undistracted effort, more than most achieve in a week. 3. Evening ritual. Seal the identity. Reflect on what you accomplished. Write down what you'll do tomorrow. Speak your affirmations, the same ones we've been installing. Play a section of this speech before bed. Allow your subconscious to be rewired during sleep. You might say, that sounds boring. Good. That's exactly why it works. Power is not born from novelty. It's born from certainty. Your subconscious doesn't crave stimulation. It craves stability. When it knows with absolute consistency what your day looks like, it stops sabotaging you. It starts trusting you. Remember, your identity isn't built by one-time events. It's built by what you rehearse every morning. You rise early. You rehearse power. Every time you complete a focus block, you rehearse discipline. Every time you speak belief before bed, you rehearse faith. Eventually, this repetition becomes so deeply embedded that you stop trying and start being. That's the shift. That's when the machine takes over. This isn't about becoming robotic. It's about becoming reliable to your future. Let's return to Andrew Carnegie. He said, you cannot push anyone up a ladder unless he's willing to climb a little himself, meaning no one else will do your work for you. But once you build the structure, design your ladder, and climb it daily, your rise becomes inevitable. So I ask you, where is your machine? What rituals shape your days? What non-negotiables build your identity? You don't need to do more. You need to do the right things every day until your results are no longer a question. Say it aloud. I build machines that produce power.
My rituals reflect who I am becoming. My success is not a surprise. It's a system. Now, let's go deeper into rewiring. The greatest tragedy of modern man isn't lack of ambition. It's that he allows too many voices into his mind. He trades depth for noise. He reaches for movement instead of meaning. His attention is divided, so his results are diluted. Let me speak plainly. The man who succeeds isn't the man who tries everything. It's the man who chooses one thing and doesn't flinch. The man who cannot be interrupted. The man who cannot be swayed by every passing idea or foolish distraction. The man who, when asked to divide his focus, replies, I am occupied with destiny. Andrew Carnegie once told me, concentration is my motto. First honesty, then industry, then concentration. This was no empty phrase. Carnegie ran an empire, not by chasing every opportunity, but by shutting the door on anything that didn't serve his aim. When men brought distractions, he listened politely and then returned to the furnace of his purpose. Now I ask you, do you let every ringing bell, every trivial request, every flicker of impulse steal your mind? If so, your future is being drained, not by failure, but by distraction. Henry Ford built a revolution, not by dabbling, but by simplifying. He refused to waste thought on the unnecessary. He didn't build 10 cars. He built one car well and delivered it to the masses. When asked why only one model, he said you can have it in any color, as long as it's black. Why? Because he wasn't after applause. He was after efficiency. Ford understood what few men learn. Focus isn't limitation, it's liberation. He cut excess choices so he could direct his attention to mastery. That, my friend, is a lesson you must take to heart. Your energy is your most valuable currency. Every time you allow your thoughts to wander, to react, you spend power that should be invested in your mission. Think of Thomas Edison, working in his lab, sometimes sleeping on a bench, so he wouldn't waste an hour away from his work. He didn't answer every call. He didn't entertain every idea. He worked. He focused. He created. When asked about his failures, he didn't complain. He said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That is the mindset of a man unavailable to distraction, a man who has closed his ears to doubt and opened his heart only to purpose. Now here's a practice to train your mind to obey purpose's voice, not the world's noise. Each morning, before you touch the outer world, before you speak, read, or hear any noise, take 10 minutes in stillness. In that silence, speak your purpose aloud, read it from the page, or better, recite it from memory. Then ask yourself one question: what must I do today to honor this purpose? That question shapes your actions. It silences the unnecessary. It reveals the foolish. It elevates the essential. Charles Schwab, who led U.S. Steel from infancy to power, understood this deeply. He worked from priority, not urgency. He trained his team to bring him only what was necessary and leave the rest. Schwab's days weren't ruled by pressure. They were ruled by direction. This must become your aim. You are not a creature of reaction. You are a man of vision. If you're always reacting, always available, always shifting, you will never build anything of weight. Power does not tolerate division. It demands allegiance. And be clear, ambition combined with laziness is often mental drift. You may feel busy, but that's not the same as being effective. The effective man is deliberate. He says no more than yes. He speaks less and builds more. He listens inward and shuts the window on outside noise. He eliminates the non-essential. He repeats the essential until mastery is automatic. Let this be your rule. Nothing enters the temple of your mind that doesn't serve your higher purpose. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Post it where you will see it. If you must choose between a dozen average tasks and one essential movement, choose the essential. The world is full of busy men and poor ones, but the man wealthy in mind, spirit, and fortune is a man of focus. Say it aloud. I do not divide my focus. I do not entertain distractions. My purpose is the loudest voice I hear. Let me leave you with this image. A man walking a tightrope can't afford to look at the crowd. He must keep his eyes fixed forward, unmoving, not because he fears falling, but because he has decided to cross. You are that man. Your future is the rope. Keep your eyes forward and walk. Let us now proceed to the next movement of this transformation. There is no greater secret in becoming a man than this. You are what you repeat. Not once, not in bursts of emotion, but daily, silently, relentlessly. If a man speaks weakness often enough, it becomes his name. If he repeats doubt with conviction, it becomes his law. If he tells himself he's tired, incapable, too late, or too broken, then even the strongest ambition dies quietly under the weight of his own tongue. But here's the power you must seize now. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue, it obeys. What you feed it, it becomes. Feed it fear, it builds a prison. Feed it power, it builds a kingdom. That's why I say, speak only what you desire to become, not what you fear, not what you feel, but what you intend to be. When I sat with Andrew Carnegie, his first lesson wasn't about wealth, steel, or strategy. It was about auto-suggestion. He said, no man becomes powerful by accident. He becomes powerful by repetition, by commanding his mind until it obeys. He gave me an assignment. Write down my chief definite aim. Read it aloud twice daily. Feel its reality as if already achieved. At first it was uncomfortable. I felt foolish, but I obeyed. Slowly the words shaped my inner world. My fear shrank. My actions sharpened. My decisions quickened. My vision cleared. It wasn't magic. It was law. The law of repetition. The law of identity. The law that governs all achievement. Henry Ford understood this too. He spoke certainty until the world believed him. His factories began not as machines but as ideas. Those ideas, powered by belief, were repeated until the impossible became routine. Remember what he said. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Now ask yourself, what do you tell yourself when the world is quiet? What do you rehearse? Do you say, I am tired? Then you are training fatigue. Do you say, I'll never make it? Then you are installing failure. Do you say, I'm not good enough? Then you are engraving defeat into your nature. Stop it. From this moment forward, speak only what you intend to become. Say it aloud. I am focused. I am unshakable. I am powerful. I act before fear has a voice. I am disciplined. I move with certainty. I rise without delay. Let these phrases become your new language. Don't say them once and expect change. Repeat these words every morning and every evening, with fire, with belief, until they feel less like words and more like who you are. That's how Thomas Edison lived. He didn't just tinker with inventions. He lived in belief. When the world called him mad, he called himself certain. He refused to speak failure. After thousands of so-called mistakes, he said, I have not failed. I have simply discovered what does not work. That is not optimism. That is identity. You must build that same identity. Build it in the mirror, not just with thoughts, but with declarations. Build it in your posture by standing as the man you intend to be. Build it in your decisions by moving without apology. Build it in your silence by refusing to let old doubts speak louder than your purpose. The subconscious can't tell the difference between imagination and reality, but it can tell weak repetition from dominant belief. So speak your new name with power, clarity, and feeling. Don't worry if you don't feel it yet. Speak it anyway. Don't wait for the world's approval. Speak it anyway. Don't ask for permission. Speak it anyway. Your words aren't commentary, they are commands. Charles Schwab rose not because of his background, but because he carried himself as a man of vision. He spoke belief. He inspired certainty in others. That certainty changed entire industries. What can your certainty do? What future waits to be built if only you spoke as if you already own it? Here is my command to you. From this day forward, do not rehearse failure. Do not repeat fear. Do not practice doubt. Instead, install belief. Rehearse victory. Build identity through repetition. Repeat this speech, not once, not when you feel like it, but every single day, because identity isn't chosen. It's built by what you repeat. Say it now. I do not speak weakness. I do not entertain doubt. I am becoming the man I speak of. Say it again and again, because the voice you repeat most becomes the voice your mind obeys. The man who rewires his identity rewrites his destiny. Repetition is the chisel of the soul. It carves belief. It shapes identity. It sharpens purpose. Whether you realize it or not, you practice something every day, either strength or weakness. There is no neutral. The ambitious but lazy man hasn't failed because he lacks desire. He has failed because he has rehearsed disconnection from his desire. He dreams big, but his daily habits are small, unaligned, random, emotional. Over time, these misalignments write themselves into the language of his subconscious. The good news, repetition can be rewritten. Repetition can be redirected. Repetition can be reclaimed. When I studied the greats Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Abraham Lincoln, Charles Schwab, I found not only stories of triumph, but stories of discipline, patterns of thinking, rituals of behavior. None were perfect, but all were predictable. Predictable in routine, predictable in self-talk, predictable in commitment to vision, no matter how they felt. Let's begin with Henry Ford. He revolutionized industry, not by chance, but by process. Every morning he began the day with one goal, progress. He believed in efficiency, not just in machines, but in thought. He refined his thinking like his assembly line, removing clutter, tightening focus, installing simplicity. That, my friend, is repetition with purpose. Ford once said, "Thinking is the hardest work there is," which explains why few engage in it. But he didn't mean random thought. He meant deliberate, structured thought. Thought rehearsed daily around a definite aim. Now Thomas Edison, the master of failure. Why? Because he understood repetition better than anyone I ever met. Over 10,000 failed attempts to invent the light bulb, yet never once did he call himself a failure. He saw each trial as rehearsal, each test as part of the rhythm, because belief was already installed. Edison said, "I never had a failed experiment. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's not just resilience, that's trained identity. A man who practices belief until failure loses power. You must begin the same way. Start each morning by speaking your belief aloud, not casually, not timidly, but as if your life depends on it, because it does. Practice your posture, shoulders back, eyes forward. Breathe like a man who owns his time. Walk like a man who unapologetically claims his ambition. Practice decision-making. Choose quickly. Speak clearly. Move without announcing. Let your discipline speak for you. Practice the hard, uncomfortable things, because repetition turns difficulty into default, and when difficulty becomes default, you become unstoppable. Now Abraham Lincoln, not a man of privilege, but of principle. His presidency forged in war, chaos daily, pressure hourly, yet Lincoln practiced silence, stillness, reflection, clarity, long-term vision. Even when the world demanded haste and noise, he wasn't brilliant by mind alone. He was brilliant through rehearsed strength. A man of law, but also a man of inner law. That is what you must build now. Your outer world reflects your practiced inner world. If you want to rewire laziness, don't wait for motivation. Build rhythm, build ritual. Wake up at the same time every day. Speak your law. Practice focus. Eat like a builder. Move like a warrior. Write like a thinker. Repeat over and over. Don't chase variety. Chase identity. Charles Schwab, placed in charge of U.S. Steel by Carnegie, wasn't the most technical man, but he was the most structured. He kept a short list of top priorities. He taught his men to master the basics, ignore the noise. In doing so, he became irreplaceable. You must do the same. Don't add more. Do less, but better. Repeat with excellence. Don't rely on emotion. Train rhythm. Don't wait for change to feel right. Repeat until it feels natural. You're not weak. You've just practiced weakness. Now practice power. Say it aloud. I repeat strength until strength becomes second nature. I train my mind through rhythm, not mood. My identity is shaped by what I rehearse.
Let these statements become your new daily laws. Repetition isn't glamorous, but it is divine. It's the invisible force behind every empire. It's the tool of every man who rose from obscurity to immortality. Repeat this speech daily. Repeat your laws nightly. Repeat your belief endlessly. Soon, when you look in the mirror, you won't recognize the old man. You'll see the man who was hidden beneath the dust of inconsistency. You'll realize he was always there, waiting for repetition to reveal him. Now let's bring this journey to its rightful conclusion. Not with silence, not with uncertainty, but with certainty so deep it cannot be undone. If you have listened to every part of this speech, you are no longer the man you were when it began. You have crossed a threshold. A line is drawn between the man who wanted to change and the man who won't wait another moment to live it.
Let's be clear. Laziness is not your nature. It's not your curse. It's not your identity. It's the consequence of drift. And drift, once identified, can be burned away. You don't need a new dream. You need new patterns. You don't need more motivation. You need repetition with fire. You don't need another day to think about acting. Now, you've been taught by examples. Carnegie, who installed belief like a mechanic, installs steel. Ford, who practiced certainty until doubt couldn't survive. Edison, who failed 10,000 times and never once called himself defeated. Lincoln, who carried a divided nation by practicing stillness and principle. Schwab, who commanded giants through clarity and rhythm. These men weren't born with your technology. They didn't have the comforts of your age, but they had one thing in common. They decided. And once they decided, they repeated that decision with such discipline, the universe had no choice but to respond. So now I say to you, repeat this speech. Play it. Not once, but until its words become your nature. Repeat it in the morning before the world tries to shape your thoughts. Repeat it at night when the day tries to pull you from your fire. Most importantly, repeat your own laws daily. Each morning, speak one of the 10 laws aloud. Let it enter your bloodstream. Let it become your compass. Let it become your identity. And do not stop. Not when it gets hard. Not when you feel tired. Not when your fire grows quiet. Because repetition is how giants are formed, how dynasties are built, how laziness is unlearned, and power is installed. You are not the man who drifts. You are not the man who delays. You are the man who decides. Say it now with full conviction. I repeat power. I rehearse purpose. I act without asking permission. I was not made to wait. I was made to build. This is the man I am, and I do not look back. Now you know, the mind must be shaped. Power must be practiced. And the man you become depends on what you repeat. So walk in that repetition. Walk in that fire. Let the world watch as you become unrecognizable.